So, I don't have a lot of friends. I don't have many people I can talk to about this that can relate, at the very least, to what I'm going through. I'm 26, a female, married to my husband, a 36-year-old male, in October of 2022. We had our daughter January of 2023. Before I had our daughter, we both worked over the road in the oversized load industry as pilot cars. Our relationship seemed to be almost perfect. We thought he was an alcoholic, but he managed it pretty well, and he did his best to cut back on drinking, especially after he found out I was pregnant. After I had our daughter, I stayed home, which is what he wanted more than I did. I loved being with my daughter, but I also loved working, and I wanted to be able to do both, so I did. Rarely, but enough to help with money. He worked full-time over the road on long projects, usually multiple states away, and I never had any reason to suspect he would ever cheat on me or that he was. Until June of 2023, when he crashed my 2021 Chevy Silverado on purpose, trying to kill himself while drunk driving back home to me. Obviously, I did not find out about it being on purpose immediately, or I would have been a lot more upset. But I drove to the Alabama-Mississippi line to pick him up and deal with my truck, and all I cared about was that he was okay, because I thought it was an accident. 2 months later, I found out from his friend, and then from him, that he did it on purpose. He was trying to kill himself and get rid of my truck payment at the same time. I never understood why he would want to do that. I thought maybe it was the alcoholism. He started fighting with me more over money, controlling everything financially. If I did not pay exactly what he wanted paid, when he wanted it paid, it would be an argument. If I even suggested paying different than what he wanted, he would start screaming. We had plans for me to meet him in Nebraska, where I'm from, for our anniversary in October, and everything was fine until about a week before I was supposed to leave. Then all of a sudden, he didn't want me to come, but I still did, and he eventually acted like he was happy about it. Things I didn't notice during this time, but understand now I should have saw as red flags, were while I was in Nebraska with him for my anniversary, he talked about this one girl who was 18 years old and on the crew he worked on a lot, always smiling, and I thought he was just enjoying somebody's company. It was suspicious, but I trusted him. The real thing that should have been a red flag is when we had our anniversary dinner. I wanted to invite the crew because I knew most of them. He said that he invited them, but only one person replied, the girl that he had been constantly talking about. We'll call her Carmen. My husband, who we'll call Adam, claimed she was the only one who wanted to come, which was weird to me because these were my friends and I did not understand why they wouldn't want to see me when I hadn't seen them in months. So I asked him about a specific friend, and he ended up showing up as well. We'll call the specific friend James.
At this dinner, this girl is telling me how she wants to be nothing like her mother, who is a homewrecker. She sleeps with married men and cheats on her husband. And I told her that I completely agree she shouldn't be like that. She should just work, take care of herself, and focus on relationships later. She's young and has her whole life ahead of her. Little did I know that while she was saying this to me, she was sleeping with my husband. I found out later that their plan was to have her come to the dinner by herself, claiming that no one else wanted to see me, to try to convince me that we should be a throuple so he could have her and me. And they were basically going to tell me about their relationship at this dinner. But since James showed up, they didn't do that. Either way, that would not have gone the way they must have thought it would, because I would have lost my expletive in the middle of that whiskey creek, taken his car that was in my name, and drove my happy self back home to Tennessee. Anyway, moving on. I spent the rest of my time there, which was about a week, concerned about his drinking. I doubt he was sober for 5 minutes of the entirety of my time there. He constantly wanted to hang out with Carmen, claiming we would be such good friends, and I honestly thought, like a fool, that he really just wanted me to be friends with her. Fast forward to when I leave. I get all the way back to Tennessee at 1 in the morning, I had to get a hotel, and I get my child to sleep, and I lay down in bed, and my husband calls me. Adam proceeds to yell at me because he has 2 flat tires
and I can tell that he is drunk off his expletive. I explain to him that I cannot help him. I'm back in Tennessee. He knows that. And I try suggesting ways he can get his tires fixed or get to a shop since it's very late. He screams at me, hangs up on me multiple times, and then in the morning acts like nothing happened. Which, when he was drunk, I would say was normal. But this was over the top and crazy because he was almost blaming me for his tires being flat when he definitely drove into something while drunk. To clarify, I was never okay with the drunk driving. It was a big problem in our relationship. Realistically, the only problem at the time that I thought we had was his drinking and his drunk driving, considering that he had not only crashed my truck, but the car he was driving, he had almost wrecked multiple times being drunk and driving. Over the next few weeks before he came home to Tennessee for vacation, every day was a screaming match over money, which was odd to me because we never really felt like that over money. And he made me feel like the biggest piece of expletive because I was trying to pay what we needed to pay, and he was trying to overpay everything, which would have left me and my child with no money at all. To clarify my living before we get into it, I live off-grid on the top of a mountain, and most of my power currently is a generator because my solar is weak, so a lot of our money went to gas for a generator. And this somehow wasn't an issue with him. He knew that we couldn't get solar panels, he didn't want to pay for them anyways, and the only way to power the house was the generator. But he didn't want to pay the gas for the generator as if it would run off magic. And that power provided power for our child. And I kept bringing up the fact that he didn't want me to have power for her, is what he was saying by saying I was not going to get money for that generator. That we needed to pay other things, and I would just have to deal with not having power every day. Which I could have. It wasn't too hot yet. But it still made no sense to me how all of a sudden he didn't care if his wife and child had power, but a month before would have lost it if we didn't have that generator able to run. Like I said, a lot of things he said and did that should have shown me he was cheating. To be fair, I asked his friend, who also lived on our property, why he was acting so weird towards me. He said he didn't know. Maybe he was just stressed. I said, I swear he's cheating on me. This is how cheaters act. And his friend, who knew he was cheating, convinced me that he would never do that to me.
A few weeks later, my husband arrived home and again was acting all out of sorts. He was very distant from the moment he saw me. It was like he didn't care that I was there. He gave our child a hug and a kiss and blatantly ignored me. I figured maybe he was tired from driving and I'd be probably happier to see my kid too. That wasn't until a few days into him being home. I kept having this overwhelming feeling that something was wrong. He had told me multiple times that I was smothering him just because I wanted him to go to town with me because I hadn't seen him in 3 months for very long. So one night, November 14th at 1 a.m., my brother's birthday, I had to check on my daughter who was crying in her pack and play. I usually take a phone with me, usually mine. I grabbed whatever phone was available. I used the light to see her so I didn't wake her up, made sure she was okay, got her back to sleep, and went to the bathroom, which is when I realized I had his phone. I went to unlock it and then was like, no, I'm not going to. It's not my phone. He didn't have Facebook or anything, so it would have made no sense for me to just try to scroll on Facebook or play in his phone. But something in me told me to read the messages, and it kept telling me to read the messages. This wasn't the first time I had his phone, but he kept telling me the whole time he'd been home that he had no storage left, and that's why everything in his phone was getting deleted, emails and text messages. Which, to be fair, every time I was on his phone, that's exactly what it told me, so I didn't think anything of it. Again, I know, foolish. So as I was sitting on the toilet at 1 o'clock in the morning, I opened his messages and I see only one conversation, him and Carmen, who he talked to an awful lot, a whole lot, about how much he loves her and how I'm okay with their relationship and that I know about it, which I did not, and that I have to respect her because I don't want to lose him and don't want to be with anyone else. So I would just try harder to keep him and let him have his girlfriend. Again, none of that is true. I knew nothing about this relationship.
One message even said she just doesn't want to be the one being cheated on, and that's when everything clicked in my brain and I lost it. I'd love to say that I threw him out, but I didn't. I stood over him and thought about beating him to death with a frying pan, but I didn't. I woke him up and asked him, "Why the hell are you cheating on me?" His response was, "When did you have my phone?" I cried and he yelled, and then he told me he wanted to leave her anyways, and he messed up and wanted to make us work and fix what he broke, that he only loved me, but he fell in love with her and he's glad he got caught so he could leave her, blah, blah, blah. So like a fool, I believed him. I gave him that chance. I cried myself to sleep and was very messed up for at least a week trying to believe him and make things work. But he had already left for work, going to Texas, so it was very difficult for me and I was obviously still upset. They got a break for Thanksgiving and were on the way home. My mom, included in this, who did not know at the time that this was going on, was driving back with him behind her when his car broke down in Arkansas. So they loaded up in her car and came home for Thanksgiving. That morning of Thanksgiving, I found out I was pregnant, and I became even more mentally messed up. When my husband and mother and the friend finally returned home for Thanksgiving, we all had dinner that I made, and then I told my husband I had a present for him and asked him to come to our house. We all live on the same property in different houses. When we got into the house, I told him I needed to talk to him. I asked him if he really wanted to work on us, be a family, if he was done with her and he was only going to be with me, this was never going to happen again and we were able to put it in our past. I asked him this 3 times. I wanted clarity, 100% sure answers from him before I showed him this test saying I was pregnant. All 3 times he answered that he adored me, he loved me, and he wanted to be with me and me only, that he would spend the rest of his life making up for his mistake, and I said okay and handed him the package containing the test. When he saw the pregnancy test, he got tears in his eyes, looked me in my eyes, and said, "I'm so happy for you. Not for us, for you." At the time, I knew that was a weird thing to say, but didn't think anything of it because of everything that was going on. I was a little overwhelmed. I had already explained to my mom back in October that I was very suspicious of this Carmen girl, and I thought Adam might be a little too fond of her, but if anything, she was going to try to sleep with him. They were just oddly close. I didn't like their friendship, and I made it clear to her that I told Adam I didn't like their friendship. December 9th, my mom calls me freaking out because she just saw Adam kissing a girl while they were in Laramie, Wyoming. This girl was Carmen. She knew it was Carmen. I was just on the phone with my husband pawning my gold necklace, which was the equivalent of an engagement or wedding ring, because I would lose a ring but not a necklace, so that he could have some money because for some reason we were constantly out of money now. I hang up the phone with my mother. I call him. He swears that she just showed up and started talking to him, and they were just hugging when my mother showed up.
So I called Carmen because I kept her phone number. Now, the last contact I had with this girl was when he told me he couldn't send the message to her saying that he could never see or talk to her again and that he needed me to do it from his phone. And in that message, I said that he wanted to be with me and that they needed to no longer be in contact with each other ever again so that we could work on our marriage and fix this, and that she's an idiot if she thought I was really okay with their relationship, let alone that I was aware of it. So when I call her, she has the same story almost exactly as my husband. So I call my husband back, and I asked him if he has had contact with her since November 14th. He says no. I tell him that I can check our Verizon and see how many times he's called and texted her. He swears he never did. I say, okay, not the time. I'm babysitting my friend's kid, so I go to their house to babysit, and I sit on the couch and I check our Verizon. And lo and behold, they have had at least 30 phone call conversations in the not even month since I found out he was cheating on me. So I text him, and I ask him one more time how many times he's had contact with her. He swears he hasn't, claims he wouldn't do that to me, that he promised me, and that I would not be okay with it, so he never has. And I told him he's a liar. He's had 30 conversations at least on the phone with her, including the day he had me block her on the phone. He gets upset that I can even see this and wants proof. So I send him the Verizon portable document format bill, and it shows him all the proof he's going to need that he's full of expletive, and I know exactly what's going on. I would love to say that I left him then and there and it was done, because how could I not? But I didn't. I gave him a choice, me or her. He said he needed a few days. I said, no, you need to choose, because if you need a few days, then it obviously isn't me. He said he wanted to be with me. I said, okay, you're with her, or contact her one more time and we're done. He said that he just needed to text her and let her know what's going on. I said, no, you don't. And he said that he couldn't do that to her, just ghost her. So he is going to choose her. Which brought us to the next few months of nonsense. I still loved him and still wanted to be with him and secretly hoped that he would change his mind or maybe she would leave him. He tried very hard for me to never contact her, but told her he wanted us to be friends. My conversations with her ended up telling me a lot. She told me that he was sending her $500, $300, and so on and so forth dollars every paycheck, the amount that was always missing that somehow was always my fault, even though I never spent more than I needed to, and the reason I had to pawn my necklace. He left his wife, who was pregnant and child home, was nothing, and sent his girlfriend, who made the exact same amount of money at the same time as him, $500 plus every single week. He made it home finally at 7 a.m. Christmas morning for his daughter's first Christmas that he wasn't going to come to because he didn't want to see me drunk again, and was an expletive all day, because I was crying because I was upset that he wasn't even going to come, and then showed up at 7 a.m. and passed out. Then I found out that his girlfriend was in Tennessee, in my town, waiting for him to be done with us so she could have him. And the only time we've spent with him pretty much since this instance started, he went and stayed at the hotel with her for several days, every day promising to come see his child and not doing so. Then finally came up here because I asked him, "You're too tired to come see your daughter?" "Okay, I'm just making sure that's what you're telling me," because he was doing meth in the hotel room next to his girlfriend's hotel room with his friend Kyle. He was too tired to come see her. He shows up, gets in my face, and is screaming at me because I said we needed to talk. Kyle has to tell him not to put his hands on me because he's very close and looks like he's about to hit me. He spends the whole hour here, basically yelling at me in front of our child while holding our child and scaring the hell out of her, and then leaves. Then on her birthday, he shows up, pretends to be a happy husband and father, gives her the dumbest toys for a 1-year-old, and then leaves again. I would love to say this was the only time she's been here to my town, but it's not. The day I found out he was cheating on me, she was down here. Every time he went to town, he would go see her, which is why he never wanted me to go to town with him and why I was apparently smothering him.
I do believe there was another time as well that she was down here looking for a house, because they were going to move into a house together. But he couldn't get a house for his child and wife that he had been married to for a year at this point, which apparently was all my fault because I didn't find one, even though I was looking, and he denied every single one I looked for. At one point in time, they had a conversation about my daughter as if it was her daughter. The way they talked about it was creepy, almost as if they planned to kidnap my daughter and make Carmen her new mom. And then multiple conversations about how they're going to get married and have children, while he's still married to me and telling me he does not want a divorce, begging me not to divorce him multiple times. He tried to convince me that I could have her too, that she could be my girlfriend as well, but told me that I could only be with him, he could be with me, her, and whoever else he wanted, and she could be with whoever she wanted, as if anybody would go for that. He told several people that he didn't believe I was pregnant and that he was just waiting for me to tell him that I miscarried so he could never talk to me again because he knew it was all a lie and that I was lying about being pregnant and faking it and faking all my doctor's appointments and ultrasounds, even though he made me take another test in front of him the next day, saying he just wanted to be a part of the process and went to an appointment with me. The stress and trauma that this caused me made me drop 40 pounds in 2 weeks while 4 months pregnant. I was unable to eat, sleep, or bathe. The only thing that I could do was take care of my daughter. I only had energy for taking care of her. He was still financially supporting me at this time, but still with his controlling psycho-expletive, so I was basically getting just enough for my daughter to get diapers and wipes and maybe some snacks. And he was spending somehow $3,500 on the weeks we didn't have to pay bills. He refused to let me pay my credit card bills, which has now put me in over $18,000 worth of debt, which does not include the $57,000 debt of my Silverado. When I finally checked out of this relationship and told him we were done was when I saw the messages he was telling her he wanted to marry her and have kids with her, as if he didn't already have a wife and kids. And he told me that losing her was more of a consequence to him than losing his wife and children. After that, I no longer slept with him. I rarely contacted him, and I left it at that. Then one day, on video chat with his daughter, he decides to tell me that his girlfriend is pregnant, and they wanted me to be the first to know. He was so happy that he got his mistress pregnant, and he immediately told his wife, to which I responded, "You're an idiot," and stopped contacting him altogether. I even took off my location. I told him if she ever got pregnant, he would never see me again. And maybe he finally came and got his things off my property. He sold his cars, our cars, technically, after I changed my name to his name on the titles, and he gave me a whopping $700 total from those sales that he made $5,000 on because he needed it more than I did. That was the last time I saw him. He video chatted with our daughter for a while, but my niece got into an accident and lost a toe. She's 5, and he was being an expletive to my mother while video chatting his daughter, so I hung up and he lost it on me, and that was the last time he video chatted his child. Our contact was very rare after that, and then finally, he decided he was going to start paying $100 a week for his daughter, which lasted a whole 4, maybe 5 weeks. He stopped sending money for her after I had our son because his friend that he no longer was friends with, because his friend started telling me the truth, we'll call the friend Kyle, had come back to live here after moving out in January due to Adam accusing me of sleeping with Kyle and doing meth with Kyle.
Which was ironic because Adam himself was doing meth with Kyle. Now that I've had our son and he found out his friend was down here, he claims that I definitely slept with his friend's Kyle, and that baby is 100% Kyle's and not his, and looks nothing like him, which is hilarious to literally everyone because his baby looks just like him, just like his sister looked when she was born, and I've never slept with anybody but my husband in the last 4 years. He's cut all contact and completely abandoned at this point, and the worst part is I can't even file for divorce because I was a stay-at-home mom. And my mom is now supporting me until I can go back to work, and she can't make enough money to support me and pay for my divorce, which is only $1,000 or $2,000 if he contests it. So I can't get child support or anything until I can file for a divorce, and hopefully that will be soon, but as of right now, no. The funny things that have happened recently are he's made a Facebook page. His Facebook says that he's married to Carmen, and her Facebook says she's married to him. And I found out he's going back to Pilot Car after getting kicked out of his girlfriend's mom's house because he thought he was a big tough man and started yelling at her mother for disciplining her 19-year-old daughter. The grossest part of all of this is that he is 36 and Carmen is 19. Adam has a son who is also 19 from a previous relationship, and he sees nothing wrong with this relationship. Carmen was 2 months out of high school graduated when she started sleeping with my husband, and don't worry, she made it very clear to me that she knew he was married and pursued him anyways. They're both absolutely garbage people. Adam has 3 children prior to our relationship, and he lost custody of all of them. I'm starting to see that he just abandons kids after he has them. I also found out he's cheated on every woman he's been with, especially after they either get pregnant or have a baby. Unfortunately, I was not told that before I decided to marry him, nor was I aware of most of this before. I know I'm a massive fool for not leaving him, if not the first, but the second time, but I was weak. I loved him, I thought he loved me, but I now know he is not capable of love. He didn't love his first 3 children or any of their moms. He doesn't love any of his friends or his family. He never loved me. He doesn't love our kids. I don't think he's capable of it. He's a narcissist for sure. I needed to get that off my chest mostly. I figured it could be appreciated here. It's a crazy story, and I know I've left out some details, but it's going on a year now, and there's just so much that's happened, and I just got out of the hospital 3 weeks postpartum. I had to have my gallbladder removed because it was on the verge of exploding, and my liver decided it wasn't going to function correctly after surgery, so I've had a rough week. Really, I've had a rough year. Thanks to everyone who reads the story, and I'm sorry if anyone else is also going through something similar, but that's why I posted it here, because I don't know anyone personally that has a situation like this, and I feel very, very alone, sometimes overwhelmingly alone.
I love my children and I'm trying to be the best mom I can be. I have no friends here and my family works on the road and the rest of them live in Nebraska, so I really am alone. And I'm just hoping that if someone else is going through this, they can see my story and know that we aren't alone and it's going to be okay.